RC lawnmower tutorial. I'll try to make this fast. First, you're going to need a 12-volt battery, at least one. You can have multiples. You're also going to need a switch. The switch I have here is a very bad example. Make sure it can handle lots of amps. You're going to be pulling power through these motors. You're going to need an RC controller and an RC receiver. These usually come together. 2 channels mean front and go, left and right. Anything more than that, you can control optional equipment. You're going to need a motor controller. This is the brains of the whole thing. Make sure you got a good one. And of course, you're going to need a DC motor. I use a wheelchair motor. They are very strong and not terribly expensive. So you're going to look up your motor's model number to determine how many watts that motor produces. And then you have to match it to your motor controller. Make sure it can handle at least that. You can always go bigger. It is very safe. I'm using a Sabertooth 2x32, 32 amps per channel, per motor. Alright, once you look it up, you'll be able to do the math. Let's go through the math. Your typical wheelchair motor is 400 to 800 watts. Your watts equals volts times amps. I'm running a 401 at 12 volts, so I'm pulling 33 amps. You're asking, that's more than your 32? Yes, the Sabertooth can hold a little bit more, but this is 33 under maximum conditions, maximum weight uphill. Here's optional material. You can go with an Arduino, do the PWN translation, do whatever you want. Hook it to a Bluetooth module, have your PlayStation controller. You can do all that. There's a battery gauge, quite helpful, and a servo for turning it off and on, or multiple servos if you want to do speed control or something. Little camera here, little FPV camera, and of course something to view the camera with. I do have a TV translator, but the TV doesn't work so great. You go through too many walls, it starts to get a little too fuzzy. I gotta lay down with this one. It gives me a headache. This is a need. You need a battery charger. This one I got a cheap Amazon one, 12 to 24 volts, so I can run either setup. Alright, back to the game, or motor controller. We're gonna have a battery positive, battery negative, motor 2A, motor 2B, and our other side we're gonna have our other 2 motors. Here's a little diagram. Pause it and look at it if you want. Alright, so the first thing I'm going to do, well, I'm going to use a little motor for this one so you guys can see it come on. I'm going to hook up our positive and our negative to our controller. This is not exactly the steps you may follow, but you're going to need to do them all either way. I have a Klein 11-in-1. I love that screwdriver. Alright, I'm going to hook my negative up to my B negative, and I'm going to hook my positive up to my B positive. I do have the switch installed between this hot side and the hot side of the battery, so I can turn it off and on. Boom. There we go. And we got a little bit of a dip switches, little tiny dip switches. We can go analog, radio, serial, and USB. So this motor controller can do quite a bit. We're going to leave it on radio. Here's your settings if you need it. If you go with a different one, it's going to have something different. So this one can handle straight RC controls. There's also a USB port. You can plug it up to a computer and do whatever modifications you want. I'm definitely not smart enough for that. Now I'm going to hook the motor up to one side. Typically when you're hooking it up, you're going to hook it up one way to one side and your other motor is going to be reversed on the other side. It's not necessarily. You can reverse it in the programming or the servos or your controller or whatever. So now, the thing I like about this one, it supplies 0 and 5 from your 12 volts. So I don't need to get some sort of modulator to get 0 to 5 volts for my small electronics. So I'm going to hook that up real quick, pick up my 0 to 5 so I can power my RC receiver. You can see at the top I got my plus and my negative. Just match those up, nothing to it. That'll supply my 0 to 5. I'm going to turn it on here and let's see. Power to our board, and we got power to our RC receiver, which is blinking because it does not see the controller. Now we need to send the signals. This is going to be S1 and S2, which is going to be your left and right motors separately. So I'm going to tie that in, and I'm going to hook that straight to our signal wires from our RC controller. Alright, let's power it up. Alright, I'm blinking. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to turn on the controller. You see the solid light, it's linked up. Alright, let's give it a good test. Front and back. Alright, we got power. That's kind of all there is, really, guys. I'll show you how it's hooked up over here. Got my little motor controller, same one you saw. Let me get a better view. My battery's hooked up in the middle, plus and minus. I got motor controller on one side, motor controller on the other side. You can see, I'm sorry, the motors. You can see they're reversed. Then I got my little RC receiver hooked up the same way you just saw. I do hot glue it in because there's a lot of shaking in the lawnmower. There's my good size switch. I love that thing. All I'm doing is interrupting the hot from the motor controller. It's killing it at the switch, so everything's off. What I did here is I hooked up my negative over to my positive of my other battery and picked up the positive. This is running them in series and turning it into 24 volts. Wheelchair motors can handle up to 24 volts. More speed.